Welcome to Resilience in Life and Leadership with your host, Stephanie Olson. I'm excited to introduce to you Leila Kubesch. She's an award-winning educator who works with diverse youth and adults to empower them to overcome emotional difficulties and achieve success. Leila taught for 25 years, serving in Title I districts, working with youth in grades spanning K through 12 who range from gifted to at risk. Her achievements include leading large-scale service learning projects, and the work of her students has landed in various museums around the country and received national recognition. She believes that everyone has the ability to achieve extraordinary things and that all children deserve access to the same quality of education as those in affluent communities. She is the 2020 Ohio Teacher of the Year. She is a public speaker on several topics, including resilience. Welcome, Leila Kubesch. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Being Resilient podcast. And I am so excited to be here with Leila Kubesch, and she has an amazing story as a experienced teacher, an educator. I'm just going to let you tell the audience all of the amazing things you do, because your story just really does bring chills. So welcome to the podcast, Leila.
Well, thank you so much. It's a tremendous honor to be with you, and I'm really excited to share anything that you would like me to talk about today.
Absolutely. Great. Well, tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today. What was it that inspired you to do all the things that you're doing?
I think I was really tired of failing. I think I have mastered the art of mistakes.
Haven't we all? Yes.
And I really didn't have guidance on who to ask so that I could take detour. I didn't know there was such a thing. And actually, that was the biggest problem. I didn't think I can ask questions. I grew up from a background, I'm North African. And the other challenge I have, I have long hair, and I'm mistaken for a Latina. And I remember, so on the top of everything else, people come to me and says, Leila, I want to practice Spanish with you. And I says, I don't speak it. I'm like, you're very funny. You should become a comedian. Like, really? I don't speak it. Yeah, you are so funny. And English isn't my native language. And somebody says, Leila, you're pulling my legs. I'm like, I didn't touch you. And then, after a while of people expecting me to be this person, to speak Spanish. And so I was not accepted for who I am. I says, I'm African. Well, like, you don't look like an African.
Wow.
Well, I am African and everybody around me looks like me.
Yeah.
And so I found that I even had to defend the thing that I don't even think that exciting, something I'm not even proud of. And then eventually one day I'm like, I took Spanish classes and I thought, might as well start learning about my people.
Wow.
And very interesting is that I started out teaching Japanese for 12 years. And then
because English is your fifth language,
yes,
isn't that right? Yes. Yeah.
So I went to Mexico and Guatemala, and I was really embraced and welcomed by the people. And I felt like for the first time, someone else accepted me as part of them. And I started speaking Spanish. I would be volunteering. Of course, it wasn't perfect, but they didn't mind.
Yeah.
And so when I tell people I teach Spanish, there is already that assumption. It was so easy. And now one of the things that I do as an educator, I don't mind learning to speak Spanish. I'm grateful. It's a wonderful language. It came easy. I love cultures. I love people. But what I really work on, it really was a hard lesson. And for me to work with children, the power of labeling. For me, I was able to rise above that. But what if the label was someone could not overcome it?
Right.
And think about, here I am, I educated with already a teaching license. I already speak a language. I already went to Japan. I already, had all these massive things that I collected to decorate with the class. And all of a sudden I needed to do something different.
Mm.
And so one of the things it became important to me is to work with the students so that the first thing they're going to have to do is overcome the label.
Yeah.
And I learned that it's what we're doing all the time, whether you're a woman, as we cannot do this, or um, you're a kid, you cannot achieve this, or you're
Yeah.
teaching, I teach at a, people even think you teach at a poor school. How do you get all this stuff? And I'm like,
Wow.
if people will visit my classroom, I don't identify with the poverty in my school. Yes, I
Right.
did teach a Title I. We have a high need community, but when you come to the classroom, one of the things I do is I look at what is the wealth we have. What do I have? What are the great things? And one of the thing I noticed, I don't know if you remember a few years ago where a lot of students was part of a nationwide, where they needed to walk out of the building at 10
Yes,
o'clock in
I
the morning.
do. Yeah.
Well, my students did that. And when they came back, they said, Miss Kubesh, don't you support us? And I was blown away. Like, what do you mean?
Mm.
Well, I realized that that morning at 7 o'clock, we were threatened. We received an email for our administrator, and we were told, you do not leave the building.
Mm.
And I felt like I couldn't breathe, because then you have all these children outside like sitting ducks.
Yeah.
Anybody can
Yeah.
do anything. They
Yeah.
don't even have to worry about coming in during busy time or recess time. And so because the students didn't know that, they assumed or guessed that they are not supported. And I asked
Mm.
my student, I said, what do you mean? And they say, none of you came outside. And then once I told them, and I realized that a lot of the time there is this miscommunication, and a lot of the
Absolutely.
time we need to support each other. We need to empower each other.
Hmm.
And so I asked my students, and how can I show you that I support you? And they say, we don't know. And a lot of time when you ask
Yeah.
people who
Yeah.
need help, they really don't know how you can help them. Otherwise,
Right.
they would ask for it.
That's
So
correct.
that's
Yeah.
one thing I found out. I was able to identify with my students. Oh, I don't have the language to ask. And for me, one of the things we have learned, when you have experienced any challenge or an environment that is not really supportive, for me, being a female, being from a very poor background,
Hmm.
growing up, then you don't ask.
Wow.
And so to me, we developed this pride or ego.
Hmm.
And I think people call us now, you have a chip on your shoulder. I really don't know what the phrase means, because
Yep.
I don't know
Yep.
what a chip is. I don't think I have a chip on my shoulder. I have
I
a
don't
log on my
actually
shoulder.
know either, so can't help you there.
So if a chip was supposed to be pride, I have a log. I'm carrying this because I felt like if an ego could be anything, I could be walking through the door sideways, because I have so much pride and so much
Mm.
ego. And that came from not wanting rejections when you
Hmm.
ask.
Right.
So we don't ask. And so I noticed that a lot of children, a lot of people who need the help don't have the ability to ask. And so I wanted to, really get to know what is it that I can do for them, because I really wanted to prove to them that I really am very genuine.
Yeah.
And they told me something I have never experienced or realized. They say, when we're in school, we get in trouble because we're not meeting the standards, and because we're not getting along with our peers.
Hmm.
At school, at home, we always get in trouble because we're not doing enough chores. We're not getting along with siblings. I'm like, wow. And they say, we're not heard at home. We're not heard at school. And that I have never thought about that. I always thought they had the support at home, but not at school or
Hmm.
somewhere, but not either way.
Yeah.
So I asked them, I said, well, it could be anything. What would it be? And just imagine, says, don't even think about barriers, just I'm going to give you this. And I held
Right.
a long pencil, and, most of my pencils are usually about 2 inches long. And I said, here's a brand new one. And if you could have anything, what would it be? And they say, we want to be heard. We want to be seen.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, they want voice and visibility. And so I decided, okay, give me an example. And I said, it would be really neat if there was something like a teen talk show.
Mm.
I'm like, okay, I don't know anything about teens. I don't know anything about talk show, about television, but I started looking in the building. What do we have? Our building is 114 years old. It's
Wow.
4 stories. We didn't even have an AC for many years. And then I go out somewhere on the second floor and I found they have a studio from the 60s that was full of junk from, from the 60s, like we had a radio
Wow.
station.
Huh.
And so I showed it to my students and we got extremely excited. Now look at the wealth, we have space. And I contacted the cable television, and they were eager to become partners. They say, yeah, it's
Oh,
gonna.
wow.
So now we needed the funds so we can pilot this. I was looking online, and I found there was a pitch competition for $2,500. Well, actually, did not know how much it is,
Mm-hmm.
but I was hoping like $5,000. So what the students wanted to do, they wanted to be able to have a TV talk show, but then we needed a website because whenever they call people, people
Right.
hang up on them. Nobody believed that we actually did. So
Oh, wow.
we started it. We cleared a place as an area. Our partners were amazing. And so then the issue is how can they get people to come in? So by the way, we don't even have school buses. So we
Okay.
have no buses. We are surrounded by well-to-do communities. So we are really
Mm.
isolated. So the TV show would be a great way for kids to really have like a window on the world, bringing in diverse community members. And a year before that, I won a small grant to have books. We have a lot of students. I noticed that I wasn't we have a 30-minute class where we wanted to get the kids to read, and I noticed the African American male did not want to read. And one kid, I said, volunteer, and he goes, we have nothing in the library, everything is about golf and about dogs and white girls, and I never thought about it. So I wrote this grant so we can have books about to have so the kids can see themselves,
Yes. Yes.
including LGBTQ community. But when I asked, but I don't know, I'm not a librarian. I did not grow up
Mm-hmm.
here, so I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
books to get. So I didn't want to get in trouble, and I sent an email to the curriculum director, but I never got a response. So that's one
Oh,
way how people avoid the topic. So the
yes.
librarian helped with everything else, but we have nothing about the LGBTQ community. So how can I do this without getting in trouble? And I thought, well, the kids can invite community leaders and they can ask anything.
Hmm.
And so there was this pitch competition called Fuel the Fire. I submitted the application and then I was invited to go and pitch this. And the eighth graders felt like, well, we want to go with you. And I'm like, let me read where it is. Oh, it's held at a bar. I can't take you. And the kids go, Miss Kubesh, have you ever been to a bar? And I said, no. He says, well, let me tell you. He says, we go with our parents. You have to have an ID to be served. And I'm like, I can't take you. And we go, why not? It's our project and we need to be there to make sure we win, as if they didn't have faith that they would pull this off.
Yeah.
And I just sit there and I thought it's the hardest thing to argue with eighth graders because most of the time
Yes.
they are right. So why can't we go? Um, and I said, because it's not a bad environment. It's a very negative environment. And they said, Miss Kubesh, stick your head out of the window and look around this community.
Wow. Wow.
Is it a great place? I says, it's a fine place. He said, oh yeah? When was it last time you invited the media and they came? I'm like, okay. How can I say, okay, fine, but I can't take you. And then they said, one more time, what can't we go? And I says, all right, here's the deal. If I take you on a field trip, and what are you meant to do? Tell my boss that I'm taking you to a bar on a school night? And they go, yes, it's highly educational. And I said, no. So never ask a question that you know the answer to.
That's good advice, right?
So I said, okay, here's the thing. If I take you with me on a field trip to a bar, I'm going to get fired and you will not get your project. And they were satisfied with that answer. So I went to pitch this and I found that it was like a deer with this like headlight. I was intimidated because it was held at a bar,
Mm-hmm.
but it was my turn to go. And I did not know to win, you had to bring people that would vote for you. And I'm like,
Oh.
where would I know people who want to get drunk on a Thursday night? I don't know. Then I have no friends. So I went in anyway, and I thought I would pick. I did not win first place. I did not win second place, but I came in third. And the third place winner gets $500. Well, I needed more than that to create a website. But this is what happened. People lined up and
Mm.
all of them gave me a business card and says, we are very moved by your project and we really were rooting for you to win. So one guy says, I'm going to give you my business card. We are based out of Chicago, and my company, I'm the owner or the CEO,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to have our company to develop the website for you free of charge.
Oh, wow.
And then I had another person who came to me. She goes, I won, like you, $500. I'm going to give you half of mine. So she gave
Oh
me a
my
check for
gosh.
$250. And then the executive of this competition, they said, we want you to come back to our board. We really like our project, and we want to pay you the difference. The biggest winner, you get $2,500. We give you 500, but we'll go ahead and pay the 2,000 as well.
Mm.
So my students were very satisfied, and of course, they created this budget and what they're going to do. And I says, this place does not pay for t-shirts. And they said, well, some of us don't have homes. We don't want to be on TV wearing our clothes or wearing something that's inappropriate. So do you want us to do that? I'm like, you obviously know the answer.
Yeah.
So they designed t-shirts, and they say, and their contribution, how he says, I said, whenever you have a grant, you're writing a grant, you want to show how you will save as much as you can. I go, oh,
Mm-hmm.
great. You can take them home and wash them. I'm like, thank you. So they made, we bought a miniature fridge because they noticed that when people come in after speaking, and we didn't have a limit, you can talk for 30 minutes, you
Mm.
can do the talk for 2 hours.
And the kids are actually doing the interviewing and the
They do everything,
wow.
but it was phenomenal for these kids to ask and it was so genuine. And I says, you can make all the mistakes because it gets edited. We had the team to
Editing is good. Yes.
yeah, and edit it. You can be part of it. And so it was really a very successful program. And what I did, what's called Youth Voices in Greater Cincinnati, but for the kids who did not speak English, because I teach ESL,
Sure.
they can do it in another language as long as you can find a guest who speaks that language.
Mm.
And they were able to do that. So it went really well. It was a great way to learn about all the community resources. They invited the executive director from the Red Cross. They learned about the program, so it was a really great way to learn about anything: career
Yeah.
education, college, and this came from a challenge. So now we look at problems as an opportunity. What can we do with this? And sure, I did not win, but who else can we ask?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be money. Money
Right.
does not solve anything, but we need to know. If I had all the money in the world, if I had $1 million, I wouldn't know what to do because I still needed someone to help with the equipment and
Right. Right.
with, but later, a year later, I applied for a grant, and I thought, I have no idea if I would ever win this. I'm asking for a lot of money to redo the TV studio.
Mm.
But what I really wanted was to learn about filming, and I wanted to learn about film editing.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to have some more lights, more better microphone, and give the kids the opportunity. But I won because I showed that we already piloted and it was very
Right.
successful. We
Right.
had all these different things. So, and I found that whenever you aim for something small, not likely you will get it. And for
Yeah.
me, when I used to try to do something really small to prove to myself that it's doable so I can go and aim bigger,
Yeah.
it really didn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
It does not work for anyone. But when you make your ask huge, I found that there are no gatekeepers. The people who have the ability, the very successful people, will always say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to go back to that conversation that you said the kids just want to be heard. I think that is so important. And um, I've shared that my real work is running a nonprofit where we go into the schools and we talk to kiddos. And our goal is that every child sees themselves in our curriculum, because it doesn't do any good if they're seeing somebody and saying, well, that's not me. What's the point? And I think so often kids don't feel heard. And you told an amazing story about your experience. Um, you were working for you were volunteering for CASA, and you were working with kiddos who were experiencing the foster care system. And I just want to hear a little bit about that, and what you learned about kids and their needs in that arena.
I have learned that as an educator, we are told that we are in the front line, but sometimes we are in the front line with blinds. We really want to know everything, but we kind of have to probe into it. I shared, like, a few years ago, I was a high school teacher. I was new to Ohio, and not new to teaching, but new to Ohio. And I was teaching at the high school. And they were looking for volunteer for this director for the student council. I had no idea what it is, but for me, that's how I do it. I volunteered really not knowing what
Yep,
it
you
is.
learn as you go.
I learn as you go. So I was a student council, not just the 11th, but also for the 12th council, 12th grade. And the majority, I was a high need, but also large minority students. So I think most of them, if not all of them, were African American students. And the goal was to prepare for graduation, the graduation or the prom, all these different
Sure.
events. And I came up with some ideas that they seemed to read, like, wow, you can do that. Like, yeah, I can help you do that. After that, in the morning, African American students would come to my class, because my classroom I was teaching ESL, was on the main floor, not far from the entry main door.
Hmm.
And I had a kid who, I think he was a senior, and he was extremely tall. And I remember the kid was an absolutely beautiful kid. Like, it's the first time where I see an African American kid with gray eyes.
Wow.
And he cried and cried and cried. And you can see his tears. I remember that kid really well, because he cried so much. His tears looked like they were foams on his face. And so I told him to go wash your face, go to the fountain, get a drink, and I will give you a pass, because students are not allowed to be late, or they get in trouble, or they
Sure.
can be truant. So that is the biggest no, the biggest thing that kids are afraid of. Like, yeah, I'll give you a pass. And that went on for a few days. And he would tell me the same thing, because I don't have much time. I didn't teach for a spell, so that was a good thing. But I couldn't understand what he was telling me, because he kept saying, I'm aging out. And I thought, that is very funny. American people are so afraid about getting old. Now, even a senior student is scared too. And then I did not see that kid anymore. And then another kid. And then told me, one kid goes, yeah, my cousin got shot because he aged out. I'm like, what? And so I went to talk to school leaders about this. I'm like, I can take these kids home. I have space. I'm not scared. I'm a teacher. I could take them home, and
Right.
it's great because I can drive them to school the next day. How convenient.
Make sure they're there. Right.
And somehow I I don't know what it is that I've upset someone, but it was September, end of September, and I was teaching at a high school, teaching 9 through 12 ESL. And I was sent to teach at an elementary school that was part of that district, of course, but was one of the well-to-do schools. And I was teaching kindergartner through fourth grade. I didn't even think kids can be that little.
They start out pretty little. Yes.
And of course, my children already grew up and they were in college. And I like these kids are like little tiny human beings. That is amazing. Did my kids were ever that small? And what I found hard about that job is like, well, I need to teach ESL to kindergartners. Like, I cannot tell if they don't speak English because they're too little or because English is not their language. So I really wasn't so sure if I was doing anything right. But I felt like it wasn't like teaching high school. I had more time on my hands. So I
Yeah.
volunteered for CASA because I thought that was there was a training. I completed 35 hours. And then I learned what aging out meant. That meant children turn 18, they have a graduation, and they are booted out.
Yep.
And what really surprised me is that these women who didn't seem to have anything else, like maybe they were retired, that they would go for something, but then they would see something else and they get the kid out, and they said how much the children resented them. I'm like, some of the, I used to believe up to that point that children are taken away from their home because there was abuse so bad that they had to take them home. In fact, I've heard of many instances, actually every instance, even when there's sexual abuse with a young child, the goal is to reunite the
Yes.
child with a parent.
Yeah.
Yet, this is what I learned with these minority kids, that is not the goal.
Mm.
Take them out of their homes. And so, for many of the kids who were Hispanic, they were taken from home because they didn't have a Western style bed. Like if they had a mattress on the floor, that was ground for taking you from home, even if the kid said, no, I want to stay with my family.
Yeah.
And they would put them with families that didn't speak Spanish.
Right.
The parents who were, if the parents were not documented, they would get scared and they would flee, they go back to somewhere
Sure.
else. And it becomes that they don't get reunited. And so these kids at the age of 18, and then actually in my own county, they didn't even have mentoring prior to that. Like kids
Mm.
have no idea, here's a pillowcase, take your stuff.
Yeah,
And I
they
thought,
literally in the foster care system, they give them paper bags and say, "Here you go." I mean, plastic bags.
oh yeah.
It is a
And
horrible, horrible
I
thing. Yeah.
looked around like, did I hear this? Did I understand this correctly in English? What if I missed something? Because it was so surreal.
Yeah.
How can this be? You would brag about taking kids from home and being there as a voice for court, but you can speak against the parent. You can do this to kids where there was no abuse. And I thought, I must be going nuts. Somebody needs to know about this because, Leila was so naive. I thought, oh, let me talk to my legislator. We can
Yeah.
get this changed. What would I want if I could do anything? Of course, I wanted was alert this. We need to have mentoring. I will even do it. My appointments kept getting changed. The appointments can only be during the daytime. So I finished 4 years of teaching at the middle elementary school, and I had this brilliant idea. I will quit teaching. That was my 20th year of teaching. I was like, I can't focus. I cannot focus. I put everything in the trash neatly just in case another teacher wanted. I went to HR. I didn't even tell my husband, didn't tell my family. I went and resigned, came home, and I told my children that I cannot help them with college because I'm officially not employed. But I had a mission.
Mm.
I went and bought a suit, kept the tag on. So in case I need to return it, and I made an appointment with my lawmakers, people who are in charge of this in my county, in charge of the foster youth. And I went in, I waited 3 months. I even made business cards. And I was so prepared, memorized, learned, studied the facts. I went an hour early to make sure I can park, know where to park. Downtown is intimidating for me.
Yes.
And the office was on the fourth floor, and I was there an hour early. And then 2 hours later, nothing happened. I have seen from the glass this person that I needed to talk to, and he was walking like a gorilla where he had his arms to the side and hunched. And I realized that he did not come from the front door. So there was another door that he came from, and he didn't want to meet me. And I had this lump in my throat, and I knew that wasn't going to hold it together. I didn't want to get in the elevator because I didn't want people to see me sob. And I left through the escalator, the stairs. And I remember telling myself, why is it that no one wants to hear what I have to say? And I realized it was that phrase that I said, they will hear from me. Wow. Not even knowing what it is. And I remember hear from me. So I sat in front of my laptop and I was looking in Eventbrite. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? How can I be heard? And there was a TEDx from Cincinnati. They were having an audition. So you fill out an application. So I filled it out. And then I paused and I said, I think I have greater chance of being hit by lightning than me when this audition. And I said, no, 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 I cannot say that because I remember what I said when I said that I have no voice. I couldn't come down the stairs. I couldn't breathe. And the tears were so much that the whole staircase was blurry. Wow. And like, great, now I can't return the suit or the shirt because I have all these tears. I actually was wearing the suit with a price tag in the back because I could not afford that suit.
Right.
And then I filled it out and I says, no, how can I be heard? And I repeated that phrase, how can I be heard? I'm like, oh, I can do this. I was so happy and I hit the submit and I drove to the library and I'm going to check out every audio book on CD, books, anything on how to speak. And I thought, all right, I cannot sit still and do this. So I need to clean the garage anyway. And I turned on to the CD player and I thought, wow, this is really good. And I get that garage spotless, so clean because I was so intrigued and I decided, this is good. And then a month later, I received an email from TEDx Cincinnati saying that I get the chance to be part of an audition. So I went in and we were told there were 112 applicants and now it's down to 15. I looked at them like, oh my God, these people are amazing. These people were dressed up, really dressed up. I wished I kept that suit because I did return it. And these people came with, one person came in wearing a 3-piece suit. He had a trifold with photos. And people were going ahead of me. And it was held at a bar. I'm like, great.
Another bar.
And it was this little red tag that, you can have this free ticket because I paid $25 to do this. Even though I was a speaker, I had to pay, and that's part of $25, you get a ticket. Like I'll go and ask for, I'll look fancy, freshly squeezed water. I needed something. So I can at least carry something. Like, can you put that in a wine or something?
Yeah.
You look like maybe I'm drinking something strong. So I can fit in with people. And I started speaking. And then I saw people with tears. I'm like, maybe I got to them. And then people had to vote. And then a week later, I got an email to saying that I was voted Audience Choice Award.
Wow.
In first place, I can do the TED Talk. And of course, it meant that I had to go first. So then my goal was, for me, I cannot tell the story that is not mine. That is the biggest no-no when you're doing storytelling. So I felt like I needed to learn about these kids. Where are they? So I contacted all the organizations that work with foster youth, and nobody helped me. Nobody wanted me to talk to these kids, no matter what I offered to do. Like, okay. So I started going on the streets. I would go to all the bad parts. And I tell you, one time I parked and I was walking. It was very dark. It was deserted. And there was a leaf behind me and I jumped. And I looked back where my car is. Like, I really hope my car will be there when I come back. And then I looked at my phone. I had 2%.
Oh, geez.
And I went in and I saw this young man. And I spoke to him and he was intrigued. I says, I want to do a camp for foster youth, for homeless youth. And he told me, I was in the foster program. And then he goes, aren't you scared of, he goes, you shouldn't be here. I'm like, you're here. And he opened up.
I love that.
And then felt like I passed this BS radar, like
Yeah.
I'm in, I whatever it takes. And then he took me to others, showed me where the others are. And then I did a camp for foster youth
That's amazing.
for 5 kids, 5 days, called Under the Star, which like a play on word as in under the stars, where literally at night they can stay up and we do campfire.
Mm.
And then also Under the Stars will bring in all the community leaders to mentor these kids. And I found the one common ground with all these vulnerable kids is they do not know how to answer what is it that they need.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would need to, what would it take? So instead of why are you homeless? And I learned to never ask why question.
Mm.
Let's say you're late to my class and think about scenario one. Welcome to class. What caused you to be late? Ah, you can say maybe you were talking to a teacher, but if I say, why are you late? Then you feel like you have to be defensive
Yeah.
as if you're in trouble or you did something wrong to cause you,
Right.
So now I would say, what
Right.
does it take? What would it take? And then, oh, I need this, this. They would tell me what it is. And the biggest issue with a lot of homeless youth, actually, it's they don't have an ID because that's one thing that gets
Right.
lost. You need to have a social security number. You need, and it is so hard. One
Yeah.
kid I helped to, they don't know where they were born or they don't
Mm.
know the name of a parent. That is the biggest struggle
Yeah. Yeah.
that I found, that they are eager to work. They will
Yeah.
work hard. And so I used that talk. It was a sold out, 800 people came at the TED talk. And during intermission, because I went first, so during the intermission, people had known me. So they came and they gave me
Sure.
their cards. And for a long time, I would say, people ask me, what can I do to help you? Like, there's nothing. And one day I woke up in the middle of the night sweating, like, I know what I need. I need signatures.
Yeah.
And so worked on House Bill 50 to pass. And then strangely that I was unemployed for 3 years trying to get this to be done. And then
And tell me what that bill is.
House Bill 50 allowed foster youth to have a home from age 8 until age 21. So they would buy them time so they can finish school.
Yes.
That way, like I had my students, they can finish school.
So important.
Yes. And so it was a journey. I think if I could go back and make it shorter, I would say to ask for help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. They will say, oh, ask and you shall receive. And I think if somebody tells you no, know that that person is a gatekeeper, because all the people who have the capacity to help you will say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just continuing to ask until you get that yes and finding what you
Absolutely.
need. You bet. I,
Yes.
I think that's such a powerful story because what so many people don't realize with the aging out process is that with foster care kiddos, you one day are 17 and the next day you're 18 or 19 depending on the state, and you are literally done. You are on your own. You need to find a place to stay. You are, and so to have that ability to have that time and to start to find the resources to access that help and those things is so important for those youth.
It is, and partly because we do not prepare children for those skills. So after I met with these kids, I actually teach in a different way.
Mm,
I could
mhm.
easily get the guests for my students.
Yeah.
I could easily, but I don't,
Right.
because I let them struggle, because I want them to learn to ask. And
Yeah.
a lot of the time, another thing as an educator, a lot of teachers say, oh, I'm the parent, I'm the
Mm,
counselor, I'm this. I would never say that.
yeah.
And actually, a few times I used to say that, but that's one thing after meeting these kids. I don't want to be everyone to my students.
Yes, you can't be.
I don't want to,
Hmm.
because I want them to see that there's a kind world out there where they can go out and network and have a support network.
Yeah,
All you need is one person.
that's right.
all you need for me for the during those 3 years, I would say, but nobody supports me. And I just sit there and be having this self-pity. Nobody supports me. And then I realized that is so not true. My
Mm.
husband supports me, never uh, question my judgment, didn't say, why didn't you tell me before you couldn't?